Alright, here we are in Mage Knight. We have Norowas here, and he is about to assault the White City. There is a rampaging Draconum off to the side, which if you feel like engaging as part of the city assault, you can do. However, in the current scenario that I'm facing, the White City is level 11, which means it has 4 white units and a gray, and every single one of them gets +1 to their armor in virtue of it being the White City. So it's a pretty tall order to begin with. I'm thinking going in here, probably not going to add the Draconum to it. As a bit of context just on kind of where this came about, I'm playing a scenario of my own making here, which is a little non-standard. I'm kind of a scorched earth, kill everything on all the tiles sort of deal, which is why I am pretty far along in the power curve and able to handle level 11 city pretty safely. A lot of people, it's very common in Mage Knight to come into the game looking at what you're going to have to do when you finally get to besiege a city and think, if it's a lower level city, you might have 3-4 units in there, and you might be thinking, how the heck am I going to be able to take out 4 units with a buff all by myself, even if I've got a couple of units? It's very easy to think that on day 1, even the beginning of day 2, before your powers really started to grow, and sometimes even towards the end of the game, night 2, day 3, you might still be thinking it's a bit of a tall order. But do not sell yourself short, because Mage Knight is a game where your power ramps up a lot faster than even you think as it's happening. To kind of demonstrate that and show just how kind of kick butt your Mage Knight can be, what you're going to see here is I'm going to assault this White City. I come into the game here with 2 units available to me. I'm max level, so I've got a bunch of skills, but I'm only going to use a couple of the skills. I'm going to use 2 units. I'm going to reactivate one with a card, so I'm going to use a total of 3 units. They are all gold, but they're all only level 3, and that's certainly something that can be had by just about anybody towards the end of even a basic game. So nothing, really shocking here, and I'm going to use a total of, I think, 7 or 8 cards, which you can't really see on this map, but I'm on top of a keep, which I've conquered. So by the time you're late game, you should have a hand size of 7, possibly 6, but probably 7. And you might have a skill that lets you draw 2 cards, a card that lets you draw an extra card. Temporal Portal might be giving you bonus cards to draw. You might be drawing from a tactic extra cards, and of course if you've got a couple of keeps, you're going to be adding. So you could very easily have a hand size of 12 or more cards to choose from, and if you get a good draw, you could be pretty easily, I won't say easily, but you could pull off what I'm about to pull off here, which is at the end of the day, I'm going to walk into the level 11 city. I am going to kill all 5 units in there. I am also going to kill the neighboring Draconum, and in that process I will take absolutely no wounds to anybody on my side. And I'll show you just how quickly that can happen. Alright, now the hand I had a bunch more cards. There were a bunch of options I could have run through, but in the end, I think just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to take all these cards on the back end that I wound up not using. There were other ways I could have played this, possibly even with fewer cards, but using up more of my crystals in my inventory. I'm just going to show you one way of doing it, the way I wound up doing it. And in order to do that, I'm just going to take these cards out of my hand that I know I'm not going to wind up using. And I'm going to toss them over here out of the way for the sake of taking these guys out here. Okay. So I'm just going to play through it. Again, it's a level 11 city. The White City at level 11 has 4 white units and a gray. These are the ones I drew. Bit of a fortuitous draw. worse units, things might not have gone quite so nicely. But as you can see, I've got a really nice arrangement of units here. But a whole bunch of my units are used up. 5 of my 7 units are used up, so I only have 2 going for me right now. I've got the catapults, which are buffed by the Banner of Glory, giving them +1 to anything they do. And then I've got the ice mages, which give me the ability to tap them to prevent an attack. Cancel one enemy attack, which is nice, but I wound up actually not needing it. So here's what I wound up playing through. Obviously, when you're going into a city, you got to worry about the fact that everybody gets fortification, and this unit here has, in fact, double fortification, so they cannot be targeted by siege unless I take care of that somehow. I don't presently have any cards in my hand that allow me to get rid of siege, at least that I'm going to be using. So instead, what I'm going to do is this. What I do have is a really nice card here, one of the artifacts, and that is the Amulet of Darkness, which gives me a black token, and it allows me to play black mana as though it were night, which is going to come in handy because powerful spells, the buffed up black spells are really nice, as you're going to see. I also have a black die in the source, which is kind of lucky, but towards the end of a night round, that's fairly likely to happen. And I am going to need an extra die, or have a use for an extra die. I technically didn't need this because I have the green in my inventory, but I wound up playing Mana Draw in order to get access to one of those extra green tokens. So that's what I've played so far. Mana Draw and the Amulet of Darkness. I'm also going to play the Ruby Ring, again, just to have some more crystals and not use them all up in my inventory. Playing the Ruby Ring gives me a crystal to my inventory and a red token. Alright. Then here's where the fun begins. I am going to play Earthquake, which in this scenario, because every enemy in this is fortified, I am going to be able to play Tremor with green. I'll just use the green die from the source and my black crystal to power it up. And what that's going to give me is every enemy I'm facing has armor -4 because they're all fortified in the city. Now, remember that every single one of these enemies has +1 armor, so it's a net -3 for each one of them. So these guys are all 4s, this guy's a 5, and this guy's a 1. These guys keep their resistances. I haven't done anything to those yet. But the reduction in the armor is going to be huge here in a second. Now, I was initially coming into this, I was really worried because these guys have poison and they're brutal. I didn't like that. I was thinking I might have to block them, but then these guys are swift, so they're hard to block, and they're cold, so they're hard to block. In other words, to block one of those, you're probably going to have to do 12 block unless you can find a way to mitigate that somehow. They're nasty if you can't kill them first. And they paralyze. So if I take any wounds, my turn's over. If I send the wound to a unit, they're dead. I can take one of these guys and send them against the ice mages because the ice mages have ice resistance. But that's only one of those attacks. I was really nervous when I made this initial draw. But then I saw that with Earthquake in my hand, these 3 guys here have a total of 12 armor. They are fortified, but I actually have a way to generate 12 siege and kill that group. So I'm going to group them all together. When you group enemies, they share resistances, but they all had fire resistance anyway. What that means is physical attacks and ice attacks are going to do full damage to them. And of course I have a catapult here, which I can activate and play a blue mana for. And that's going to give me Siege Ice 6 because of the Banner of Glory. Turns out I'm not going to need that extra buff, so don't worry about if you don't have that. Then I'm going to activate my Ice Mages here. And again, I'm going to power that with blue mana. And that will give me another Siege Ice 4. So that's a total of Siege Ice 10. And then I'm going to play Crushing Bolt. And I'm going to power that with a green crystal. And that'll give me another Siege 3. So it's a mixture of ice and physical siege, but none of them are resistant to any of that. So that's a total of Siege 13, which is enough to kill those 3 guys before they ever get a shot. Now I'm liking, I had to use up my Ice Mages, which would have allowed me to cancel one of these guys, but I'm less worried about them than I am the paralyzing attack here. And it turns out I can kind of take care of these guys too. Now, I didn't actually mention this, but to get into the city, in the first place, you have to spend 2 move. I was outside of the city, if you recall. Right? Started in the keep here, and I had to move on to the city there. But I did have forward march as a skill here, and I had 2 units active, so that gave me 2 movement for free. So that's how I was able to get into the city. I do have this agility card, which, had I needed it, I could have played to get in there. But what I'm actually going to do instead is I am going to play this for the 2 movement. I'm just going to play the base effect because I'm going to need the white crystal that I have in a second, and I have no other access to white mana. But what that's going to do is it's going to give me 2 more movement that I still have left after using the 2 from forward march to move into the city. And I can, if I want, spend movement to get attack 1 in the attack phase. All right, so that's done with. Just remember I've got the 2 movement and the option to turn movement into attack. Now I've also got this card right here, and here's the key to my woundless victory. I'm going to play with the white crystal from my inventory and the black die from the source. Remember I played mana draw, so I can use both of those dice. This is going to give me, and the Amulet of Night allows me to use black mana even though it's day. Target enemy does not attack this combat. I can target either of them because, thank goodness, neither of them has arcane resistance. If they had been, I might have had to lump them into my initial strike here. Notice I couldn't add them to my siege, even though it did have one. He only has 1 armor left, thanks to the reduction from Earthquake. But I can't put him in here because he's got fortification, and not only would the double fortification on that prevent me from killing that unit, but it would spread to the other units, making none of them vulnerable. So if I was not able to group that with these guys when I took them out, and that 1 extra point of siege was wasted. I could have swapped one of these guys for this guy. Didn't really matter in the end. I'm going to be able to take these guys out anyway. So what this does is it allows me to choose either one of these guys and tell them not to attack. Right? Target enemy doesn't attack. And I can target additional enemies by spending 1 movement point for the second, 2 for the third, etc. Since I only have 2 units left after killing the other 3, I only need to spend 1 movement to make sure that both of those 2 guys do not attack me. So their attacks are negated thanks to my powered up Wings of Wind spell. Now I've just got these 2 guys left over, and all I really need to do to take them out is 1, spend my 1 remaining movement point from agility to do 1 point of damage, which is now enough to kill this guy here. Remember, he was increased from 4 to 5, and then decreased from the 5 down to the 1 by Earthquake. This guy's 9, reduced to 5 by Earthquake. Physical resistant, but fortunately I have Fire Attack 5 in my hand. And now I can use the token, the red token that I generated with the ruby ring earlier, to do Fire Attack 5, killing him. After going through all of that, I thought to myself, oh wow, that was actually pretty easy, and I still had a bunch of cards in my hand. I wonder what else I might have been able to do. And looking at it more closely, I realized that if I had played Rejuvenate beforehand, I could have powered that with green mana. And in powering it with green mana, that gives me the option here to ready a level 3 unit if I choose. Doing that, I can choose to ready these guys before I even go into the city, and that would allow me to add these Draconum to the initial fight from the very beginning. Now these guys have 7 armor. They don't benefit from the fortifications, and as far as I know, they do not benefit from the +1 to the city, although that's not specified in the rules, I think, because they're not getting site fortifications. I wouldn't give them the city buff, Anybody who online wants to correct me on that, that's cool. But I'm also not decreasing their armor by earthquake or anything like that, because activating these gunners and the fact that I have the leadership skill, which allows me to increase a range attack by 1, that allows me to take these gunners, power up their fire attack, which is normally fire attack 6, turns it into fire attack, range fire attack 7, and I would be able to kill these guys once again right at the outset before it ever began. So I played that a little bit out of order just because I wanted to show you the initial city assault and then come back and say, by the way, I could have done even more. I would have had to do that that last kill in the initial ranged phase before I started negating attacks from the ice mages and all of that. But you basically get the idea. I walk into the city, tapping my movement skill, my forward march. I go in there and I use siege attack on the 3 freezers. Then before I went in there, I would have had to ready this unit. So I ready that unit. And that, by the way, would have given me 3 movement from forward march. So I would have even had more left over from agility had that been useful. But I then kill that Draconum with the ranged attack before proceeding to the attack phase. Before I even go into the attack phase, I also play Wings of Wind, Wings of Night, negating the 2 attacks, which means I go right through the block phase and the assigned damage phase to the attack phase. I once again tap agility with my remaining movement to kill that 1 unit with just 1 piddly little armor left. And then last but not least, I play Flame Wall for fire attack 5 to kill the ice mages. So as you can see, playing, what is that, 8 cards, and using at the end of the day 3 units, although 1 was refreshed with the use of one of those cards, and of course using a bunch of crystals out of my inventory, I was able then to take out the entire level 11 White City with all 4 units and a gray unit and add a Draconum into that while taking no damage to myself or any units whatsoever. I call that a win, and once again, there's a very good chance late in the game you're going to have 3 gold units. There's a very good chance you're going to have you do have to get a lucky draw with enemies and with your hand, but you have some control over what cards are in your hand, of course, and you have ways to build up your hand size. And if you're drawing 12 cards late in the game, you should be able to get a pretty decent draw. And as you can see, at the end of the day, it is entirely possible to take out a level 11 city without too many resources at your disposal. All right, so that is just my quick little example here. I hope that was helpful for you. If I made any mistakes in that, I would be very grateful for somebody to point them out to me. Otherwise, I hope that was useful to you, helpful to you, entertaining for you, or what have you. And that's all I got. Cheers.